My wife and I dreamed of a new life together, saved money, made plans. Then I discovered she was already building a life with someone else, using my money. She thought I wouldn't notice. But I didn't just notice, I left her with nothing. The day I discovered my wife's betrayal started like any other Tuesday in Denver. The morning sun painted our rented downtown apartment in warm golden hues as Hannah rushed to get ready for work, her tailored navy suit perfectly pressed, her blonde hair falling in gentle waves. She kissed me goodbye, told me she loved me, and headed to her law firm. Just another normal day in our 7-year relationship, 3 of them as husband and wife. I watched her leave from our 12th floor window, thinking about how far we'd come. We'd been saving aggressively for 2 years, both of us working overtime and living well below our means. I'd cut back on my tech conferences, even though they could have advanced my career in software development. Hannah had given up her weekly spa days and designer shopping sprees. Every spare dollar went into our joint account, building toward our dream, a beautiful craftsman-style house in Cherry Creek, with a wraparound porch and enough bedrooms for the family we planned to start. The balance in our account had just hit $170,000, almost enough for the down payment. We were so close to making our dream a reality that I could practically feel the house keys in my hand. I'd even started sketching out home office layouts during my lunch breaks at the tech startup where I worked. That evening, Hannah's phone buzzed while she was in the shower. I wouldn't normally look, but it lit up the dark room, and I caught a glimpse of a message preview that made my blood run cold: confirm weekend getaway booking. The dates aligned perfectly with her upcoming girls' weekend with her college friend Kate in Aspen. Something about a spa retreat, she'd said. The notification disappeared before I could see more, but that heart emoji kept flashing in my mind like a warning signal. I tried to push away the suspicion. Hannah and I had built our relationship on trust and open communication. We shared our passwords, our dreams, our fears. We'd weathered long-distance periods during college, family crises, and career changes. But that emoji haunted me, a tiny digital seed of doubt that took root in my mind and wouldn't let go. That night, after Hannah fell asleep, I sat in our home office, her laptop casting a blue glow in the darkness. Her password was the same one she'd used since college, her childhood dog's name followed by her lucky number. My hands trembled as I typed it in, already hating myself for what I was about to do, but unable to stop. The truth spilled across the screen in technicolor detail. Hundreds of messages, hidden email threads, carefully deleted calendar entries that had left their digital fingerprints behind. The man's name was James Crawford, a senior partner at her firm. Married, with 2 kids. The affair had been going on for 14 months. I read through their exchanges with a detached sense of unreality, like I was debugging someone else's code, looking for errors in a program. Except these errors were in my life, my marriage, my future. They'd met at firm retreats, legal conferences, fabricated business trips. Every detail was meticulously planned, every alibi carefully constructed. But what truly shattered me wasn't the physical betrayal, it was the calculated financial manipulation. They'd been planning to use our savings, my extra hours and sacrifices, to build their future together. Hannah had even asked James to recommend a good divorce attorney who could help her craft a prenuptial agreement before the house purchase, ensuring she'd get everything in the split. He's so focused on his coding that he never notices anything, she'd written to James. Once the house is in both our names, we can execute the plan. He'll never see it coming. I sat there until dawn, reading every message, examining every photo, uncovering every lie. 7 years of shared history rewrote themselves in my mind. Every late night at the office, every business trip, every girls' weekend, how many of them had been real? How long had I been playing the fool in my own life story? But as the sun rose over the Denver skyline, something else rose within me, a cold, calculated resolve. Hannah had underestimated me, had counted on my trusting nature and my absorption in my work. She thought I was just a predictable programmer, someone who could only think in binary, true or false, ones and zeros. She was about to learn how creative a software developer could be when it came to debugging a broken system. I spent the next week planning, coding during the day and orchestrating my revenge at night. I started by writing a simple script that would transfer our savings into a new account, time-stamped to execute during her next business trip with James. Then I reached out to our real estate agent, explaining that we needed to postpone the house hunting indefinitely due to unforeseen circumstances. But that was just the beginning. I used my tech skills to dig deeper, uncovering patterns in Hannah and James's communications that revealed their regular meeting spots, their future plans, their vulnerabilities. Every bit of information became a weapon in my arsenal. I created an anonymous email account and carefully composed a message to the firm's managing partners. I included selected screenshots of inappropriate communications sent during billable hours, time-zone stamped photos from their rendezvous at client conferences, and expense reports that showed duplicate charges for hotel rooms on business trips. The email was clinical, professional, focused entirely on the firm's liability and reputation risks rather than personal drama. Hannah had always said the firm's leadership was old school, conservative, obsessed with their reputation. She was right. Within days, both she and James were called into a series of closed-door meetings. I watched from our apartment window as she came home early that Friday, mascara streaking her cheeks, her perfect suit wrinkled. She'd been suspended pending an ethics investigation. But I wasn't done. I had timed everything perfectly. The following weekend was their planned getaway to a boutique hotel in Vail. While Hannah was packing her conference materials, I was executing the final phases of my plan. First, the money vanished from our joint account, transferred to my new private one. Then, our shared cloud storage was systematically wiped clean of our photos and memories, all backed up safely to my private server, of course. I canceled our shared credit cards, phone plan, and streaming services. I even logged into her premium airline membership and canceled her carefully planned flights to Vail. I packed methodically, taking only what was undeniably mine, leaving behind the expensive gifts she'd given me over the years. I wanted no trace of her false generosity in my new life. The movers came while she was out dealing with the fallout from her suspension, efficiently boxing up my designated items and leaving the rest. The last thing I did was leave an envelope on her pristinely organized desk. Inside was a USB drive containing copies of everything I'd discovered, along with divorce papers citing infidelity and financial manipulation. The note attached was simple: you wanted a new life. Here's your chance. I was in my new apartment across town when she discovered what I'd done. Her calls and messages flooded my phone, a desperate digital tsunami of explanations and apologies. She swung wildly between begging for forgiveness and threatening legal action. I let them all go to voicemail, each desperate message a small victory. Through mutual friends, I heard the aftermath unfold. James's wife had somehow received an anonymous package of evidence. His divorce proceedings started a week after mine. The firm's ethics investigation expanded to include other instances of professional misconduct. Hannah's carefully constructed world was collapsing, one domino at a time. Months later, I ran into her at a coffee shop in Lodo. She looked different, smaller somehow, less polished. She tried to approach me, but I simply gathered my things and left. As I walked away, I heard her call out, "Was it worth it? Destroying everything we built?" I didn't turn around. She still didn't get it. I hadn't destroyed anything, I'd simply revealed what was already broken. The dreams, the plans, the future we'd imagined, they'd been corrupted long before I discovered the truth. All I'd done was refuse to play my assigned role in her story. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about those 7 years, about the life we'd planned, about the moment everything changed. I think about the house we never bought, the family we never started, the future that evaporated like morning dew. I wonder if she ever really loved me, or if I was just a convenient stepping stone to the life she really wanted. But then I remember her words in those messages to James, he'll never see it coming. She thought she knew me completely, had me perfectly categorized and understood. She thought I was predictable, controllable, blind. She was wrong. In the end, I didn't just get revenge, I reclaimed my story. I showed her that the quiet software developer she'd underestimated could rewrite the ending she'd planned. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about destruction, it's about refusing to be a character in someone else's plot. Now, a year later, I'm coding at a new company, living in a different part of town. I'm slowly learning to trust again, though the passwords on my devices are considerably more complex these days. Sometimes I catch myself looking for hidden meanings in innocent text messages, searching for betrayal in casual conversations. The scars are still there, but they're fading. The money I saved is still sitting in my account, waiting for a new dream to fund. Sometimes I think about buying that house in Cherry Creek anyway, just to prove I can do it on my own. But I'm in no hurry. I've learned that the best plans are sometimes the ones you never saw coming. Looking back, there were signs I should have noticed. Like how Hannah started taking more interest in our finances about 18 months ago, insisting on reviewing every investment, every account balance. At the time, I'd been proud of her financial responsibility. Now I realize she was just auditing her future assets. Or the way she'd started subtly criticizing my career choices, suggesting I was too passive, too content with my senior developer role. You could be a CTO by now, she'd say, if you just played the game better. She was laying the groundwork, building her justification for later, when she'd paint me as the inadequate husband who couldn't match her ambitions. The most painful memories are of the family dinners, the holidays, the social gatherings where she'd played the role of devoted wife perfectly. There's a video from last Christmas that haunts me, Hannah sitting on our couch, her head on my shoulder, talking about our future children and the legacy we'd build together. James had been at that party with his wife. I remember him complimenting our holiday decorations, raising a glass to our happiness. The footage shows him standing in the background, checking his phone, probably texting my wife while his own stood beside him. After everything fell apart, I found myself analyzing those moments like lines of corrupt code, searching for the exact point where the error began. When did genuine affection become performance art? When did our shared dreams become her strategic misdirection? Some nights, I dream about alternate versions of our story. In one, I confront her the moment I find the messages, unleashing years of pent-up frustration in a dramatic showdown. In another, I say nothing, play along with her plans, let her build her house of cards higher and higher before revealing my hand. But in the end, I know I chose the right execution path, clean, efficient, irreversible. The aftermath wasn't all triumph and satisfaction, though. There were dark weeks when I barely left my new apartment, surviving on delivery food and coffee, coding through the nights because sleep meant dreams of her. I lost 15 pounds, grew a beard I didn't recognize in the mirror, ignored calls from concerned friends and family. My sister Grace finally broke through my self-imposed isolation, literally picking my lock one day, a skill I didn't know she had, and finding me surrounded by empty energy drink cans and takeout containers. She took one look at my setup, 3 monitors displaying various bits of code and financial data, and unplugged everything. "This isn't revenge anymore," she said, opening curtains I'd forgotten existed. "This is self-destruction with extra steps." She was right. I'd become so focused on orchestrating Hannah's downfall that I'd started to mirror her worst qualities, the obsession with control, the endless manipulation of details, the ruthless pursuit of a singular goal. I was letting her betrayal corrupt my own code, so to speak. That realization sparked my real recovery. I started therapy, joined a tech meetup group, reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. I even adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy mutt named D-Bug who doesn't care about real estate investments or career advancement, who just wants walks and belly rubs and treats. The Denver tech community turned out to be my unexpected salvation. Word had gotten around about my situation, the tech world is surprisingly small, and job offers started flowing in. Companies were impressed by how I'd handled the crisis, excellent problem-solving skills under pressure, one CTO called it. I accepted a position at a promising startup, one that actually valued work-life balance and ethical leadership. Hannah tried to reach out again 6 months after the divorce was finalized. A carefully worded email arrived in my inbox, subject line, closure. She wrote about therapy revelations, about taking responsibility, about hoping to understand herself better. Maybe some of it was even true. People can change, I'm proof of that. The old me would have forgiven her, would have wanted to understand, to heal together. But I'm not that person anymore. I wrote back a single line, no further debugging required. Then I blocked her email address and took debug for a long walk in the mountain air. Life has a way of compiling new code from old fragments. Last week, I finally started house hunting again. Not in Cherry Creek this time, I'm looking at properties up in Boulder, near the foothills. Something with a big yard for debug, an open floor plan for entertaining, and a dedicated office space for remote work. The house I'm considering costs less than our dream home would have, but it feels more valuable somehow. Maybe because this time, the dream is truly mine. I still believe in love, in partnership, in building a future with someone. But I've learned to validate the input before running the program. Trust isn't about sharing passwords anymore, it's about sharing values, respecting boundaries, maintaining integrity even when no one is watching the execution. Sometimes I drive past our old apartment building, not out of nostalgia but as a kind of system check. The last time, I noticed a "for rent" sign in the window of our old unit. Apparently, the perfect view of the Denver skyline wasn't enough to keep Hannah there after everything fell apart. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved to Chicago, starting fresh at a new firm where her reputation hadn't preceded her. Part of me hopes she's learned from her mistakes, grown into someone better. The rest of me knows that's not my process to monitor anymore. James didn't fare much better. His wife took him for everything in the divorce, and the firm's investigation uncovered a pattern of ethical violations that went beyond his affair with Hannah. Last I heard, he was practicing law in a small town in Nebraska, his dreams of making partner as dead as his marriage. As for me, I'm still writing code, still debugging systems, still building things. But now I understand that the most important programs we run are the ones that guide our choices, our relationships, our integrity. You can't always prevent malicious code from attempting to corrupt your system. But you can build better firewalls, implement stronger security protocols, and when necessary, execute a complete system reset. The money that was meant for our shared future sits in a high-yield account, growing steadily. Sometimes I think about the irony. Hannah's betrayal ultimately made me wealthier, both financially and emotionally. I learned expensive lessons about trust, love, and revenge, but unlike her, I got to keep the tuition. Recently, I found myself at a tech conference in San Francisco, leading a panel on cybersecurity in ethical hacking. During the Q&A session, someone asked about the intersection of personal and professional ethics in tech. The room grew quiet, waiting for my response. I thought about Hannah, about James, about all the ways technology can both expose and enable deception. Security isn't just about protecting data, I told them. It's about understanding human nature. The strongest firewall can't stop someone who already has the passwords to your life. After the panel, a woman approached me. She'd heard about my story through mutual connections in the Denver tech scene. Her eyes held that familiar wounded look I used to see in my own reflection. Her husband, a software engineer, had been gaslighting her for years, convincing her she was paranoid for questioning his late-night debugging sessions with a junior developer. I listened to her story over coffee, recognizing patterns I knew all too well. When she finished, she asked me the question I'd been asking myself for months: does getting revenge really help? I thought carefully before answering. Revenge isn't about healing, I said finally. It's about refusing to be a victim in someone else's story. The healing comes after, when you start writing your own code again. She nodded, understanding the tech metaphor in a way Hannah never would have. We exchanged contact information, and I connected her with my therapist and my divorce attorney. Sometimes the best way to process your own trauma is to help someone else navigate theirs. That conversation stayed with me on my flight back to Denver. As the Rockies came into view, their peaks still snow-capped in late spring, I thought about how much had changed in the past year. The man who had shared that downtown apartment with Hannah felt like a different version of me now, running an outdated operating system that couldn't detect the malware corrupting his life. Debug was waiting for me at the dog sitter's, his enthusiastic welcome a reminder that loyalty still exists in its purest form. We drove up to Boulder to check on the house I was considering buying. The realtor had called with news of another offer, but I wasn't worried. After everything that had happened, I'd learned that panic never leads to good decisions. Standing in the empty living room, watching Debug explore his potential new territory, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The house wasn't perfect, the kitchen needed updating, the home office was smaller than I'd like, and the yard required serious landscaping work. But it was real, solid, mine. No hidden agendas, no secret plans, no complex manipulations. Just a space waiting to be filled with new memories. I ended up getting the house. The other buyer's financing fell through. Sometimes karma works in subtle ways. Debug and I moved in last month, and I've been slowly making it our own. The first thing I installed was a state-of-the-art security system, not because I'm paranoid, but because I've learned the value of protecting what matters. Yesterday, while setting up my home office, I found an old photo that had slipped behind my desk drawer during the move. It was from our wedding day, Hannah and I dancing, her head thrown back in laughter, my arms around her waist. For the first time, I could look at it without feeling that familiar surge of anger and betrayal. Instead, I felt something closer to gratitude. That might sound strange, being grateful to someone who betrayed you so completely. But Hannah's deception forced me to rewrite my own story, to debug my life's code and implement better error handling. Without her betrayal, I might have spent years living in a compromised system, never realizing my security had been breached. The photo's in a box now, along with other artifacts from that version of my life. Not hidden away, but archived, a reminder of both what I survived and what I learned. The lessons weren't cheap, but they were worth the price. Trust should be earned, not given. Love without respect is just manipulation with a friendly user interface. And sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to play your assigned role in someone else's program. These days, I'm writing new code, both literally and metaphorically. My startup is thriving, Debug is mastering new tricks, and the Boulder house is starting to feel like home. I'm dating again, cautiously, with better exception handling and input validation this time. The woman I'm seeing is a cybersecurity analyst who appreciates both my technical metaphors and my need for transparent communication. Life isn't perfect, but it's authentically mine. No hidden variables, no unauthorized access, no compromised protocols. Just clean, efficient code running exactly as intended. Last week, I received an unexpected email from Hannah's younger sister, Sarah. She was getting married and wanted to know if I'd mind her using the wedding planning spreadsheet templates I'd created during our engagement. It was such a mundane request, so divorced from the drama and pain of the past 2 years, that it made me laugh out loud in my new home office. I sent her the templates with my congratulations. As I dug through my old files to find them, I discovered something interesting: the original version of our house hunting checklist, the one Hannah and I had created before everything fell apart. Looking at it now, I could see how every item reflected a compromise, my desire for a home office balanced against her insistence on a formal dining room, my preference for modern architecture softened by her love of traditional design. The house I bought in Boulder doesn't match a single criterion from that list. It's smaller, older, and further from downtown than we would have considered. The kitchen isn't a chef's dream, and the master bathroom definitely doesn't have that spa-like feel Hannah wanted. But every morning, when I watched the sunrise paint the flatirons in shades of pink and gold, debug snoring softly at my feet, I know I'm exactly where I should be. Sometimes the best victory isn't in getting revenge, but in discovering that the life you thought you wanted wasn't the one you needed. Hannah's betrayal was a critical system failure that forced a complete rebuild. But from that crash, I created something better, a life running on my own terms, secured by lessons learned, authenticated by genuine relationships, and backed up by newfound self-trust. In programming, we have a concept called elegant code, solutions that are clean, efficient, and effective without being needlessly complex. I'd like to think that's what my life has become. Not perfect, not without its bugs and occasional error messages, but elegant in its authenticity. And that, more than any revenge, is the best response to betrayal: living well, living truthfully, living as yourself. Debug just brought me his leash, time for our evening walk in the foothills. The sun is setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in colors no monitor could capture. Another day of clean execution, another step forward in this new program I'm running. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own code to debug, its own systems to optimize. But that's okay. I've learned that the best programs are the ones that can handle unexpected inputs without crashing. And this time, I'm the only one with administrator access to my life.